Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, and today we'll be discussing the future of gaming in consoles, specifically the PS6 and the Xbox Magnus. Now the PS6 has the codename as Project Orion and Xbox, the codename is Magnus. So we're going to talk about how big the generational leap is, when will it come out, the confirmed specs, and what you can expect from the next generation. So here we go. Now all of this information is from reliable sources like Moore's Law is Dead and Kepler L2 and others as well. But rest assured, all the specs that I'll be putting out, they are confirmed so that you can plan out the next console that you want to buy. Let's talk about the launch dates. Now, both Microsoft and Sony are planning out their launch in mid 27, possibly fall, but that's the timeline they're going for. The Xbox codenamed Magnus, that might launch a little before than the PS6 and maybe a couple of months before. That's what Microsoft is planning. Next, let's talk about the brains inside the next generation console. So both Microsoft and Sony are continuing the partnership with AMD. And we'll be discussing as to how it compares with the previous generation. But with this generation, they are going with Zen 6 architecture and RDNA 5, which is dubbed also as UDNA. So you can expect a much bigger, at least 3 generational leap in the next generation consoles. The manufacturing will be 3 nanometer by TSMC. So that's their 3rd generation node N3P. And rest assured, the power and the efficiency that comes along with it will be beneficial to the consumers as well. Now, before we go on further, let's discuss RDNA 2, what powers the PS5 and the Xbox Series X. Now, if you look at any of the PC builds that you do with RDNA 2, you can see that these are the frame rates. 4K is not really playable unless and until you upscale. And with the RDNA 4 that has just come out, that's with the 9070 XT, the frame rates are definitely playable at 4K. And with the RDNA 2 architecture, we'll be comparing the RX 6800. And this is how they compare. So this was basically to give you an idea as to how the PC builds are and how they're faring. But consoles are a bit different. Every game that is released for a console is optimized since the hardware is known. For PC, the hardware is not known, so optimizations usually take time and they are not in power with console optimizations. So essentially, if you're looking at a PC, you have to maybe go at RDNA 3 to get the same results as RDNA 2 for a console. So there is a bit of a drawback when it comes to PC efficiency. Now with RDNA 4 at 4K native, these games are definitely playable. And with RDNA 5, there is to be a generational leap of around 30-40% as well. Now, if you take that into account, you can definitely play all of these games at 4K without upscaling, native, with ray tracing, and you'll be able to hit 120 frames per second, both in Xbox Magnus as well as the PS6 Project Orion. Now, a side note over here, Xbox is planning to make their console 30% more powerful by adding more compute units so that they're able to hit 144 frames per second, and that's the edge that they would want over the PS6. PS6 would stick to 120 frames per second. Now, let's talk about the chips and some numbers. So the first thing is the chip design is to be a monolithic APU design of around 280 millimeter square, featuring 52 to 54 RDNA 5 CUs. And the memory for this would be somewhere around 30 GB of GDDR7 on a smaller bus, focusing on balancing performance with a launch price of $600 or so. The Xbox Magnus, the next generation, that story is a little bit different. Now the APU die over here would be a bit bigger. Compared to the PS6, this die would be over 400 millimeter square and will be using a chiplet design for PC-like scalability and power. And this will feature 68 RDNA 5 CUs, which would give a 30% performance lead over the PS6 and thus hitting the 144 frames per second that I mentioned earlier. Now, the Magnus is expected to boast a massive memory buffer, possibly going up to 48 GB of GDDR7 memory. Now, the trade-off over here, since Xbox is planning to put in around 30% more power than the PS6, would be the price. Now the Xbox is expected to price somewhere around $1,000 to $1,200, while the PS6 is rumored to be priced somewhere around $600 to $700. As far as Xbox goes, Microsoft is planning to blur the lines between PC and console, and that will extend to the operating system as well. They will give you a PC-like experience, and you'll have kind of a 2-in-1 advantage when it comes to Xbox. So let me know in the comment section below which one would you rather go for, the Xbox Magnus or the Sony's Project Orion.